I went to my first baseball game yesterday. I got my foam finger. Yay! There's the foam finger, yeah. So I might use it for pointing, I don't know. Anyway, so before we get started, let me introduce myself. So my name is Zuzana. I am a PHP and Laravel developer. You can find me on my website, zuzana-k.com, which to be honest, I don't really update. I haven't touched that thing in about 2 years, but it's there. You can also find me on my Twitter at Zuzana_Kunckova. Good luck spelling my surname. I'm more active there. I read, sometimes tweet. I'm also keeping an eye on all the other platforms, but we'll see what happens there. You can also find me on Larabels, which is larabels.com website. Larabels is a community for PHP and Laravel developers underrepresented due to their gender. And I'm also a LinkedIn Learning creator, so I've made 4 courses for LinkedIn Learning so far, so you can find me there. And also, before I go further, the slides for my talk were done by my daughter, Mariam. She's only 13. I think she's amazing, obviously. I mean, you know, my daughter. And yeah, I think hopefully by the end of the talk, you will see why I'm so excited, because she's really good. So, I'm going to put the foam finger away. The curse of knowledge. How many of you know what it means, what it is? Now, I can't see anything because of the light, so I assume some of you will be nodding, maybe. And those of you that do know, I bet, well, you might be thinking, what is this about? I mean, we are at a tech conference. Who cares? Like, we're here for the tech expertise. But let me ask you this. Let me ask all of you this. Who ever used Google or Stack Overflow or Reddit or any other platform there is to ask questions or to learn, to find out about stuff? Because I definitely do. Every single day, because that's how I learn. I read questions, I read the answers, I look for some weird edge cases. Because we all have to learn somehow. Nobody was born knowing how to program, you know. We all are learning from other people. We are all standing on the shoulders of giants. And we learn something new every day, because given the nature of technology, new things come up every single time. Like, we need to relearn new languages, new frameworks, new ways of doing stuff. And the way we learn, we read stuff and we use the internet, we use the kindness of other people to teach us. However, and knowing much, knowing a lot is kind of the hallmark of this industry. You're expected to know your stuff. But knowing a lot, this expertise can be a double-edged sword in some ways. Because when it comes to communication, it can lead to difficult communication. Because it turns out that knowing a lot can be a bad thing. It can be hard. It can be too much. So, curse of knowledge. What is the curse of knowledge? The curse of knowledge is an assumption when people make that they think that everyone has the same level of understanding and knowledge as they do when it comes to a certain thing. A technology, for example. Which is, if you ask me, unreasonable, because we all come from different backgrounds, we have different experiences, we've done different things, yet people seem to be totally unaware that what you and me might consider to be that simple, somebody might find difficult. So knowing about the curse of knowledge is good for everyone, because then the way you approach maybe asking questions or answering questions, somebody's questions might be different. And before I go any further, what is the cognitive bias? So cognitive bias is a term when the brain takes a shortcut. It relies on our own previous knowledge and understanding to make things easier, because processing new information and learning things is really taxing on the brain. And it takes a lot of cognitive power. So what the brain does, it will rely on the previous knowledge, understanding, experiences to take a shortcut. Imagine your brain being a computer, which shouldn't be difficult given this conference. And it takes in a lot of information to make decisions. And that's hard and exhausting. It takes shortcuts to quickly understand and interpret things based on our experience, knowledge, rules of thumb, the common sense, which, if you ask me, is the least common of all senses. So that can lead to some interesting outcomes. And these shortcuts are called cognitive biases. Let me give you an example. For example, this is Taylor. And Taylor, sorry Taylor, but I think it's good. Taylor comes out with a great new product, and we all expect it to be great because Taylor, has a good track record coming up with good ideas. But really, it's still just a cognitive bias, because we rely on our own experiences, feelings. We want Taylor to succeed, so we expect it to be great, which I'm sure it will. Taylor, I don't know if you're here. I'm sure your product will be amazing. But that's an example of cognitive bias. And now that we have an idea about what the cognitive bias or what the curse of knowledge is, it basically is people assuming that we all have the same baseline, that we all know a certain thing and not less. However, this bias can lead to really difficult communication, miscommunication, misunderstanding, and really simply difficult collaboration. Because when you're in the weeds of a project, it's very easy to forget that some people might not have the same context like you, some people might not have the same experience, the same knowledge. And I bet it's happened to you before that you might be working in an English-speaking company, but sometimes it just feels like you don't even speak the same language. And this is the curse of knowledge at play. And I think now that you know about it, you will notice it so much more because it happens all the time. Now, imagine what happens when people who write tutorials or answer people's questions online have the curse of knowledge and don't even know about it. Now, when I started learning to code, I used a lot of tutorials and followed a lot of instructions. And oftentimes, the tutorial would ask me, open the command line and write something, a command. Now, who can tell me what the problem with this be? Anyone? The $sign. Because I had a good old Windows computer, and my terminal didn't have the $sign. So what happened? Every time I was asked to write a command, like let's say composer requires something, I would write $sign composer requires something, and then it would fail. And I would panic, because the terminal is this black box of magic. I was very intimidated by it. And I know it would give me an error, but I didn't want to read it. I would panic, because I was so afraid I would type something and destroy my whole computer. And when this happens right at the beginning of let's say, an article you're reading, you're like, this is the first step. This should be easy. Why isn't it working for me? What am I doing wrong? Am I broken? Is my computer broken? And nowhere in those tutorials people mentioned that this $sign is not part of the command. They just didn't say it. And these were tutorials meant for beginners. But it didn't say anywhere. So it was very frustrating. It made me doubt myself. It really made me think it's not for me, because if I can't follow simple written instructions, maybe it's not for me. Now, another example. Not long ago, I was looking into building a Docker image. And I found this online. And by the way, there's the $sign. That wasn't even part of this, but I noticed it a few days ago. But part of this command just says docker build -t my nginx image latest, and then dot. Now, how many of you would notice the dot at the end? Because I wouldn't. I would either assume that it's a typo, it's not supposed to be, maybe it's an end of sentence kind of thing, maybe that my screen is dirty. That's happened before when it comes to commas. I'm like, what is this? I wouldn't notice. Or maybe I just wouldn't see it at all. That's called inattentional blindness. When you are looking at something and you're just not seeing it. And I bet it's happened to everyone here. When you know there's a bug in your code and you're looking at the line, you are not seeing it. So inattentional blindness. But the fact that the author of the tutorial said that no, the dot at the end, and they said what it does and what happens when you miss it out, this is extremely valuable. Because it will bring your attention to it, and then maybe you knew it, or maybe you had an idea before, but now you know for sure, and you know what happens if you leave it out. So for anyone who will land on this in the future, they'll know, and even the people who might forget the dot, run the error, Google the error, and then they might land on this as well. So it's so beneficial. And the author of this article kind of didn't assume that people will know what it is, and they were specific about what it means and what it does if you leave it out. Because I'm not saying that we should describe every single part of a command. I'm not saying that. But do try to put yourself, if you are writing content online, if you are answering questions, try to put yourself in the shoes of the person who's reading it, and try to think what it is that they might not know. Think back to when you were learning, and all the things maybe you didn't know, and the things you tripped you up. The things that kept you up at night, circles under your eyes, guys, coffee or tea in hand. Because chances are, if you were confused, other people were confused. There's a lot of confused developers out there. So I think it's really important to really try to imagine, don't assume things, especially if your tutorials or answers are for beginners. And don't even get me started when answers to questions start with, check the documentation. I mean, I'm going to make an assumption here and now that most people do read the documentation, and then they Google, and only then they go and ask question. Okay, so when the answer to your question is, check the docs, it's like, duh, what do you think I did? This is an example I found on a well-known Laravel learning platform, Laracast. And this person was asking about how to create an event. And so they described the problem, and they put a little bit of code. And OK, they did ask someone to write that event for them. I'm going to just ignore that bit. Let's assume that this person did their homework, and they tried to learn, and they couldn't figure it out. So they asked a question. And this is the answer they got. Read the documentation. And it's like, OK. I mean, if you say that, maybe even try to point you, I don't know, maybe ask, is there something in documentation you didn't understand? But don't just say, read the docs. Now, the next answer to this question was, I'm sorry, this is a screenshot, so you might find it hard to read, but that's not the point. Basically, the point is that the person who wrote this answer, they were more specific. They said, when you run this code, this is the command you have to run, the PHP artisan command, this is what happens, and then this is what you have to do, and then you need to add a listener to handle the event, and so they tried to teach the person. They didn't just tell them read the docs, or they didn't give them, they didn't write it for them, in my opinion, but they tried to teach them how to do it. Well, then the OP had another question. They wanted a clarification, and this is what they got. Again, read the docs. And I retracted the name because this is not about shaming. I'm not trying to, and I don't even know, maybe there's somebody here in the audience who actually was part of this conversation. I don't know. If you are, I'm so sorry. I'm just trying to make a point. But yeah, again, read the docs. I mean, come on. And then the next answer is even worse. It says, I'm worried that you are working on an application like this, seeing this a lot lately, people picking up jobs above their league. I mean, why? What do they think they're going to accomplish by writing something like this? What is the point? Are they going to help them? Did they help solve the problem? Are they just going to make the person feel worse? What is the point of this? And also, I mean, aren't we all really doing this, picking jobs above our league? I thought that's what developers do, like winging it. So what is the problem? Eventually, the OP gave up. They just said, whatever, I'm not able to create this kind of thing, thanks. And there's like another little developer heartbroken, And maybe not the OP didn't even care as much, they just moved on and forgot about it. But what about all the other people who eventually land on this exchange and read that, and they read the part about picking jobs that are too hard for them? That's not nice, and that's going to be on the internet for a long time, for a lot of people to read and be affected by. And yes, to be honest, it affected me, the thing about picking jobs above your league, because that's what I do all the time. I mean, most of my projects are, I don't know what to do. I am winging it, and I'm Googling and searching for information. I thought that's how we learn, like pushing the boundaries, surely. You know the saying, like, don't give men a fish, teach them how to fish. Yes, and please be kind as you do this, because comments like that, they're not helpful. And again, not everyone, sending people back to read documentation, not everyone understands the docs. Some people might have dyslexia. Some people's language, well, they might not have English as their native language, so they might struggle with that. Some people simply need more help, it's as simple as that. Does it mean they don't get to ask questions? Does it mean that, they're excluded from the conversation? And also, like I said, working on the harder projects, that's part of what we do. And I'm not saying we should do the homework for other people. I'm not saying that we should write the code for them, but yet walk them through step by step, tell them what to, how to solve problems, or maybe look out for this or that or the other. Because the thing is, you might think, yeah, but a lot of people don't read the docs, and they just take the easy route and just ask questions. But the thing is, we have no control over what they do. What the person asking question does, or why they do it, that's none of our business. We are there, and nobody's even forcing you to answer anything, to write the answer. It's your choice. You don't have to answer. So don't. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. It's better. So be kind to people, try to be understanding, and yeah, give them the benefit of the doubt. Don't think, oh, they couldn't be bothered, so I'm going to be mean to them. No. What they do is none of your business. The only thing you have control over is what you do, how you reply, how you react. And the thing is, you might think, this is such an easy, simple thing to do, like, well, how come they don't get it? But yeah, we all learn differently. We all come from different backgrounds. We've got different stories. Some people might have problems, they might have an issue, they need it broken down into much smaller parts for them to understand, smaller than maybe what you needed, and that's okay, because we all learn differently. And this is usually the way I have to approach a problem. So let's say I have a problem, a question. Then I need to ask the question, which is bloody hard, honestly. If you're learning something, you don't know what you don't know the right words maybe, you don't know what to ask, you don't know the sequence of steps, it's really hard to ask a question if you're learning something new, because you simply don't know what it is you don't know. And let's say you finally formulate a question that kind of makes sense, you post it online, and then, if you're lucky, you receive an answer. And then you try to read the answer and understand it, and you fail. I do a lot of the time. And it could be for two reasons. It could be because English is not my native language. It could be that my English is simply not good enough, which is okay. You know, I forever confuse words like chicken and kitchen, soup and soap. I know what they mean, but when it comes to using them in sentence, I always have to stop and say that in my head first, because for some reason there's something happening in my brain, cross wires, and I just keep confusing those words. So English, fair enough, okay? But could it be that the answer is simply not good enough? Could it be that the answer could be better? So I am lucky to have a mentor that I can go to. By the way, her name is Sarah. Hi, Sarah. I don't know if she is. Hey. That I can go to her and ask her questions. She knows that sometimes I need things explained to me as if I'm 5, and I have to ask it over and over, because it's just the way it is. I don't often, it takes me a while sometimes to get stuff. But the thing is, not everyone has this amazing opportunity to have a mentor. There are a lot of people who have to rely on the kindness of strangers on the internet to ask questions. So that's why we need to be aware of the cost of knowledge and try to address it in our content, whether it's articles, videos, or honestly just going on Stack Overflow replying to people. So what can we do about our cost of knowledge? Basically, for the purpose of this talk, now we're going to have a little interlude when we need to stop my computer. Let's put yourself in the shoes of a newbie that doesn't know much about, I don't know what it is you're working on. And let's check, like, what if you don't understand what is a service container in Laravel? And, sorry, now is my clue to, is it there? Yes. So let's say we are learning something new, and try to imagine what it's like not to know this. Okay, what is a service container in Laravel? And just between you and me, the reason I picked this topic is because I'm still not quite sure what it is, I guess. I mean, I've looked into it so many times, and I asked Sarah so many times, and it's not happening. I mean, eventually it will happen, but yeah. So that's why I chose this question. And I'm going to say I did check the docs, and I need more help. Okay, so don't tell me, read the docs. So I ended up on Stack Overflow, some random page. And as a newbie, what I would do, I would just find something and then just quickly scroll down and see, okay, so it's got some answers, long answers. There's one. Okay, that's a long one. There's another one. So it's been answered. It's been upvoted. So we've got right there on the top, it's accepted answers. So that's a good place to start. So then start reading. And right the first sentence is basically linked to the documentation. Okay. So I'm not going to even click that. But then it says that it's a dependency injection container and a registry for the application. Rabbit hole. I can see a rabbit hole. Because if I'm learning something, I'm like, even though I know kind of what dependency injection is, I'll probably go and check it. I'll go and Google it again to see, just to make sure, So here I've got another tab. What is a dependency injection in Laravel? And can you see what happens when you're learning something new, how easy it is to just go down the rabbit hole and start looking into things that are related, yes, but not necessarily the point of, what you're trying to learn. But rabbit holes, we all love them. This one has got just 1, 2 answers. Yeah. 2, there's one on the bottom, yeah. Very short one. So, I mean, it says, again, we go back to the documentation. I'm not going to go there. The next one is not even upvoted, but it has a definition. It says a dependency injection is a technique whereby one object supplies the dependencies of another. Whoever uses whereby? I mean, I don't know. Did I even say it right? I don't know. So sometimes when this happens, then I would probably go to ChatGPT. And if I struggle with the English part, ChatGPT is actually a really great tool to simplify things for me. But let's say I understood this. If I remember what was the original question, I'll go back. Sometimes I don't even remember, because it might take me a few hours to get back to where I started. And we are still only at the first line. And then I'm going to scroll down a little bit just to skim, because at first I don't read every line. I'm trying to skim the text to see if there's something that jumps out at me to give me an idea. Because when I'm learning something new, I need the bigger picture first. I don't need all the details. I just need to know, okay, what is it? Something, I need to be able to relate it to something I already know, and only then I can go back and connect the dots. But this answer, although it's been upvoted plenty of times and it's been accepted, it's long. It has a lot of code blocks. Then they use like binding of interfaces to concrete classes. That looks like another rabbit hole to me. Registry, I mean, down at the bottom it says as a final node. It kind of seems like this could be at the top. If this was at the top, it's saying that essentially it is the application object. If this was right at the top, chances are I would have a better understanding, and then anything else that was above this, it would make more sense. But for some reason, people like to put like the TLDR at the end. Don't do that. Put it at the beginning, so you give like the person a framework of what it is you're trying to teach them. And the second answer is basically just as bad. I mean, it's not bad in terms of content. It's bad in terms of what a person who's learning this might experience. Because again, it's quite long. And now it's talking about upbind and singleton. Ooh, rabbit hole right there. Because what I would do, I would probably go and Google singleton, although I know what it is, but just to make sure, you know. And then I would check the other design patterns too while I'm at it, because obviously that's what we do. So rabbit holes. Then there is, if I scroll down, there is implementation binding, another rabbit hole, lots of code, and then at the end, conclusion. Service container helps to create object of class or services. So this was just an example to show you that, what's that? Just an example to show you what it might be like for somebody, okay? Is it somebody's phone? Is it actually a train? Okay. Yay! So just to show what it might be like for somebody to experience, like when you are learning something new, it's not easy, it's overwhelming. You feel like a little bit panicky as well, especially when it's something for a work you're doing and you really need to get it, and then you feel like you're under pressure to really understand. And this is an example when I said use ChatGPT to help you, because and I'm not saying it's just good for the non-native English speakers. I think it would benefit everyone, because let's say ChatGPT said, in simple words, it's like a manager. And I said, I know what a manager is. I get that, I can relate to that. That's much better than telling me in some technical words what it does. I don't need to know that just yet. I just need to have a bigger framework. So it was just an example. And so what can we do to make the answers better to questions like that? So generally, it's better to have short answers rather than long. Because the longer the answer, the higher the chance that the person is going to click away or lose attention or just quickly scroll and miss the important point. So keep the answers shorter, or at least have the TLDR at the top. Also, avoid acronyms, technical jargon, and complicated words. Because that's yet another thing that our brain needs to deal with. If you've got an acronym that you're not familiar with, what are you going to do? Google it. And then it takes you away from what you were doing, and you might even don't even come back. So try to not let people click away. Keep them, your answer, your article. Technical jargon, complicated words. If it's for beginners, there's no need for that, because they might not understand it. And even if they do, it just takes so much for them to put it in place that it's a waste of time. Try to make the words easy to understand. Use code snippets sparingly. Unless you ask for a code snippet, oftentimes people ask questions using human language, words, and they expect to hear human language back, something that humans understand, not what computers will understand. Unless they ask for a code snippet, I'm not saying not use them at all, but don't make this to be the whole thing. Like the answers I showed you on Stack Overflow, were they really necessary, all these code snippets, or could it be we could have just used human words, explain what it is? Be specific. So if the person asking has got an example and they use, I don't know, function names or variable names, use them back. Try to make if you can give an example that they could just copy-paste into their code to make more sense, do it. Don't use foo and bar. Nobody even knows what it means. I mean, I Googled it, but because that's what I do. I'm a professional Googler. And give them the benefit of the doubt and be kind. Again, let's not assume that people don't do their homework and don't read the docs. Even if they don't, whatever. You don't have to answer the questions. But if you do decide to answer the question, be kind. Because that's all we need to do. Now, it might look like I am picking on Laravel documentation. I'm not. Honestly, I'm not. I think the Laravel documentation is really good. We've got the bootcamp, we've got Laracast, we've got so many other YouTube channels and books and articles and other learning platforms. We've got so much, there's enough for everyone to choose from. However, people will always ask questions. No matter how good your resources are, people will still ask questions, and that's good. We want people to be asking questions because that's how we improve, that's how the framework, the technology improves by discussions. If people didn't ask questions, we wouldn't know what the problems were, and the tools that we use, maybe they wouldn't be made, or they wouldn't be as good. So questions are good. Don't make people feel ashamed for asking questions. Don't talk down at them. Tell them the opposite. Tell them, actually, this is like, validate their feelings. Tell them that it's okay to struggle because coding is really hard. It might not be for you anymore, but you might remember if you try hard that it was hard at the beginning when there's so much to learn and you don't really know what's going on. So be kind, encourage discussion, encourage asking questions, and answer them the best way you can. Because by knowing about the curse of knowledge, we can try to kind of, I don't think we can eliminate it, but when we are aware of this bias, we can address it, and we can make our communication to be better. Because, despite the name of the talk, the curse of knowledge, knowledge is actually a privilege. It's a privilege we get to share with other people. And as I said at the beginning, nobody was born knowing this stuff. You know, everyone had to learn this. Coding is hard, and let's not forget that. It's hard, it might be harder for some people. It might be that you started coding when you were young, and it came like easier to, but the older you get and you've got more experience, it can be difficult. You've got different life stories. So coding is hard, and we need to acknowledge it. And so let's all work together to be better at this. Let's all work together to break the curse of knowledge once and for all. Now, before I go, I did ask my daughter to make me prettier on this picture, because I think she could have done a better job. But she told me I would have to pay her more, much more. So this is all I got. Thank you.
Did you get that picture of Taylor approved by Taylor?
No. Should I have?
I'm sure he said he loves it, but he would like to see you in his office after this, so I'm sure that went great.
Oops.
You mentioned briefly that you have a mentor. How did you find that relationship, and is that something you would recommend for seniors to be mentors and juniors to find mentors?
Definitely. So I met Sarah, and I wish she could come. I don't think she would come up here, to be honest, but if you want to, come on. I can't see anything. I found her, we worked at Titan together, and we clicked on straight away, and she's just such a nice person, and we connected on a human level. We are friends, I dare to say. Please don't say we're not. I don't know where she is. Anyway, so we are friends, and we connected on a human level, so I understand her, and she understands me, because sometimes when you are looking for mentors, you do have to find the one that suits you. Not everyone will suit you, like, personality-wise or communication-wise. So it might not be that you have a mentor, you might not get on. It's fine, just find somebody else. There's nothing wrong with it. So I would definitely encourage finding somebody like that, because it is a lonely place when you have to go online and look for everything online. Like when you don't have anybody in person to bounce ideas off and ask questions, it is a lonely place. So I would definitely encourage people to try to find mentors and be mentors, because you don't have to be senior to be a mentor. Everyone knows, even regardless how little you think you know more than somebody else. That makes you potentially a mentor to somebody else. Mm-hmm. And you might not be technically advanced, but I've been at this industry for a while, so maybe I can be mentor in terms of like the socializing and networking. There's so much scope. But overall, I think people just need to have friends and have somebody to turn to. So yes, please be mentors if you can, and yeah, be nice to each other.
Final question. Will you be my mentor and explain what the service container is? Because frankly, still don't really understand.
Do you not get it either?
No, I really don't.
Not just me.
You were up there and you're like, I don't really get it. And I was like, yeah, also same.
I mean, I don't know how
alone.
many times I asked, how many times I read the docs. It's just, I don't know. Sorry,
well, you're not alone. All right, everybody, give it up for Zuzana.
Thank you.